Hello, another good morning here in Gothenburg, and now we are going to talk about accountability in the workplace as a programmer. And this is going to be one of those rules that or rather I'm going to tell you about something that I don't know how it got to this point. I assume it's not like I don't get it, but at the same time, I have a little bit of an issue with it. So what am I talking about? Well, I am talking about something you will face probably more than once in your career. And that is, you ship it, you ship it, you own it. Or another, my personal favorite version of this expression is, you broke it, you own it. What do I mean? Well, every single place, every single team I've worked in, even today, just like all the places I've worked, whenever you work as a part of a team, right? You ship features, and you merge things into the master branch, and you push things out to production, and sooner or later there's going to be an issue. Now, in general, 99.9999% of the time, the perception is that you, as an individual, even though our entire Scrum way of working, the agile mentality, and we're all a team and everybody should be able to do everything and all these trendy things, all of that goes absolutely, for the most part, out the window when you break something, when you produce a bug. Because when you produce a bug, that means that somebody else is less, well, it's not somebody else, it's basically you are the most knowledgeable person about this topic, and therefore you should take responsibility for it. What basically happens is that if you ever break something, if you are perceived to be the person who caused an issue with one of the features you were delivering, you're it's almost a given that it's your responsibility to fix it. This is not a problem necessarily. I mean, it does make sense if you think about it. It does make sense for you to take responsibility for you breaking something. But I also wanted to touch on a few things that I think are a consequence with this type of thinking. So I have two concrete cases actually for this. Let's start with my colleague at work, who did the amazing job of refactoring basically we were running a React application for one of our internal tools. And it's a fairly important internal tool. I mean, of course, we don't keep things around without reason, right? And it was a fairly major refactor. It was basically a complete overhaul of a previous application. And I actually made a video about this where I said that this is the scariest thing you can do as a front-end engineer. A major refactor of an Angular application, a Vue application, or a React application. We're talking major, like tens of, if not hundreds of different components and features and so forth. The reason why that is very scary is that when you do something that major, there's two things that happens. The first thing that happens is that you are perceived as being the deliverer of this feature, which means that every single thing that is wrong or that anybody can tie into your delivering of the feature mentally, like I think that, okay, you were the one who was working on this. If anything misbehaves, I'll go to that guy or that girl and ask them about it, because that person must have been responsible for doing this. Oftentimes it is true, but that's the perception. You now own this entire page and you just became the master of this feature, even though there's no real reason for you to be that. That's just how it seems to be working. I don't know why. And the second thing that happens is that you will most likely break something. JavaScript is a loosely typed language. Odds are that you're going to break something. So you now have the two biggest problems that anyone can have in a place of work when you do something like this. Number one is that everybody thinks that you own this application now. You're the go-to guy or girl. And the second thing is that any problem that arises, which is going to happen, is now immediately piped down to you. Everybody's going to come to you. And that's maybe that's okay for you, but it gets very annoying when when you're basically the go-to guy for every single issue that comes up, like everybody comes to you, especially non-technical people, like you just become the go-to for everything that has to do with that. And that's not how it should work, in my opinion. It should be like you should spread the knowledge and everybody should be equally responsible, but unfortunately that's the way it works, at least from my experiences. So my colleague is in exactly that position now. I kept telling him, like, you are very brave, and you know, he kind of now he tells me that, oh, I didn't really know what I was, you know, getting myself into, and I've been there before, and I've seen other people be there before. I mean, shit, at Ticketmaster we had one of the programmers that he actually won an award, which was very well deserved, and he was this close to becoming the entire company, like all of the department's go-to guy for a very major piece of technology that he delivered. He was clever enough to realize that, hey, we need to open source and like share the responsibility, because otherwise I'm going to sit with this thing and be the owner of this for the rest of my career in this company. And he did. He kind of broke loose there. So, and that was very good for him. And the second example I have is what I'm actually going to go and fix today. I felt like an absolute douchebag yesterday because I had a thing after work and I couldn't, like, there was an issue with a Webpack configuration that I had shipped during last week, and one of my colleagues was basically stopped from pushing his code into production, and now I had to leave. I was helping him debug it because, like, I'm kind of like, I don't want to be, but out of necessity I'm the go-to guy for Webpack stuff and basically front-end stuff. So now I'm gonna help him fix it. But basically it was the same thing. Like Webpack is one of those things, like when you're doing your bundling and all your JavaScript and CSS is going through Webpack, if you mess around with that, that's a very central piece. Like that's the nervous system of all the code that you're gonna ship to the client, which means that it's very high risk. Like adding a small component somewhere on the page is not high risk, but Webpack is high risk. Same thing with big refactors, touches a lot of stuff. Odds are you're gonna break it, and I broke it. And now I'm the go-to guy for everything Webpack, and because I'm perceived as being the person who is responsible for our Webpack configuration. And it's not a great place to be. So and the problem is that when you have this mentality at a workplace, you scare people from taking initiative on bigger projects. Or at least I think so. And I don't really have a good way of thinking about it or a good solution for it. I just want to warn you that, you know, sometimes these things happen, and it sucks when it happens, but you kind of just have to deal with it.